Be me, Marcus, 31, running a small residential painting crew in a city where every old house has crooked walls and expensive problems. Most mornings start before sunrise with coffee from a dented thermos, paint buckets rattling in the van, and a list of rooms that need to look perfect before the owners come home. It is not glamorous work, but it is honest, steady, and mine. I like things that show results. A wall is stained, you prep it, prime it, paint it, and by the end of the day, there is proof you were there. No theories, no speeches, just clean lines and a room that looks better than it did when you arrived. That was the kind of life I built for myself. Simple, quiet, paid for. Then I met Lena at a friend's backyard dinner in early spring. She was 27, sharp, funny, and had this calm confidence that made people turn toward her when she spoke. She worked in marketing for a boutique wellness brand and had the kind of polished presence that made everything around her feel slightly more curated. Her laugh came easy, her opinions came easier, and for the first few months, I liked that about her. She had intensity without chaos back then. She could talk about social issues, art, food, old movies, and somehow make all of it feel urgent. She told me she was a feminist on our second date. I said that was fine with me. I believed men and women should be treated fairly. I had a mother who worked 2 jobs when I was a kid, so nobody needed to convince me that women could be tough. Lena smiled when I said that and told me I was one of the rare men who was not afraid of a strong woman. At the time, I took it as a compliment. Looking back, it was more like a warning label written in pretty handwriting. The first months were good enough to make the later months confusing. We went to street festivals, cooked at my apartment, took weekend drives to small towns with antique shops and overpriced coffee. She liked that I paid without making a show of it. She liked that I opened doors. She liked that I fixed things around her place without turning it into a debt. She liked my truck, my hands, my work ethic, and the fact that I did not need constant attention. She called it masculine in a grounded way. Then one night, while we were eating dinner at a little Italian place she picked, the language started changing. She said modern men had become fragile because they no longer understood the provider role. I looked up from my pasta because I thought she was joking. She was not joking. She said women deserve softness, safety, and protection because the world was exhausting for them in ways men could never understand. I nodded because the statement was broad enough to sound reasonable. Then the bill came. She did not reach for it. She did not even glance at it. I paid. On the drive home, she kissed my cheek and said she loved being with a man who understood natural generosity. That was the first phrase that stuck in my head. Natural generosity. Not kindness, not appreciation, not partnership. Generosity as an expectation. Over the next few weeks, that expectation grew legs. Dinner was my responsibility because pursuing a woman meant investing in her. Uber rides were my responsibility because women had to think about safety. Groceries at my apartment were my responsibility because she was spending emotional energy being present with me. If we went away for the weekend, I covered the hotel because she said planning outfits and maintaining beauty standards was already a form of unpaid labor. At first, I told myself this was just her way of being romantic. Some women liked old-school gestures. Some men did too. I was not broke. I could afford it. And if buying dinner made her feel cherished, I did not mind. The problem was that nothing stayed a gesture once Lena touched it. Every courtesy became a rule. Every rule became a moral test. Every moral test somehow ended with my wallet open. One Saturday, she sent me a video from some relationship coach talking about masculine provision. The woman in the video said a man who truly loves a woman should remove stress from her life financially, emotionally, and physically. Lena asked what I thought. I said it sounded nice if both people were contributing in their own ways. She went quiet, not angry yet, just quiet in that measured way that meant I had stepped onto the wrong floorboard. Then she said the phrase that became the theme of our relationship. A woman contributes by being loyal to a man's vision. I remember that line because I repeated it back to her. She smiled like I had finally understood something sacred. I asked what that meant in practical terms. She said it meant feminine support, emotional warmth, respect, admiration, peaceful energy, and not competing with him. That sounded almost traditional. Actually, it sounded very traditional, but when I asked if that meant she believed in traditional loyalty too, her expression changed. She said loyalty did not mean ownership. She said respect did not mean obedience. She said peaceful energy did not mean silence. She said I needed to stop interpreting feminine values through a patriarchal lens. I did not argue. I just filed the conversation away in my head. That became my habit with Lena. I filed things away, not in a spreadsheet, not in some dramatic evidence folder, just in memory, receipts, texts, calendar entries, and the kind of quiet attention you develop when you have spent years noticing tiny imperfections before they become expensive repairs. By month 6, Lena had fully embraced what she called the provider lifestyle. She wanted nicer restaurants because she said a woman should not be courted like a college roommate. She wanted flowers twice a month because romance needed consistency. She wanted me to cover her gym membership because, in her words, I benefited from her staying attractive. She wanted weekend trips because feminine energy withered without experiences. She wanted me to help with her rent one month because her expenses were high and I made more. When I asked why her expenses were high, she said skincare, clothing, and wellness appointments and social outings were part of the standard women were expected to maintain. Then she said men created those beauty standards, so men could help pay for them. It was a neat little circle. Everything she wanted was either empowerment or compensation. Everything I wanted was either insecurity or control. Her friends loved this arrangement, especially Talia. Talia was 32, single, permanently unimpressed, and spoke about men like she was reviewing a defective product line. Every brunch Lena attended with Talia produced a new requirement. One week, provider men did not ask women to split costs. The next week, provider men planned dates without asking too many questions. Then, provider men handled practical stress so women could remain soft. Then, provider men did not complain about money because abundance mindset was attractive. I started noticing the pattern the way I notice brush marks under bad lighting, subtle at first, then impossible to ignore. Lena was not becoming softer, she was becoming more entitled, and the more I provided, the less she respected it. If I paid for dinner, she critiqued the restaurant. If I bought flowers, she commented on the color. If I fixed something at her apartment, she joked that at least male privilege came with some practical benefits. If I worked late, she said I was choosing capitalism over connection. If I took a day off, she wondered why I was not using that time to plan something special for us. I was becoming a utility, useful when functioning, annoying when requesting maintenance. The moment that clarified everything happened on a Friday night at my place. I had worked 10 hours repainting a rental unit where the previous tenant had smoked indoors for what seemed like a decade. My shoulders hurt. My hands were dry and cracked. I had paint in my hair and primer under my nails. Lena came over wearing a cream coat I had paid to have dry cleaned the week before. She looked beautiful. She always did. I had ordered Thai food because I was too tired to cook. She looked at the containers on the counter and sighed. Not loudly, just enough. I asked what was wrong. She said she thought a provider man would understand that after her stressful week, she needed to be taken somewhere with atmosphere. I stood there in my work hoodie and just looked at her. She said takeout felt low effort. I said I had been working since 6 a.m. She said that was exactly why men needed to plan ahead instead of dumping their exhaustion onto women. That sentence landed differently, dumping my exhaustion onto women. I had paid for the food, I had cleaned the apartment, I had bought the wine she liked. I had done all of that after a day where my body felt like an old machine. And somehow my tiredness was still an imposition. I asked her a simple question: what do I get from being your provider? She blinked like I had spoken in another language. I repeated it calmly. If this is the lifestyle you want from me, what do I receive from you in return? Her face hardened. She said relationships were not transactional. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because the hypocrisy was so clean it looked professionally cut. I said she had just spent months defining my role in financial, practical, and protective terms. She said that was different. I asked how. She said provision was masculine love. I asked what feminine love looked like. She said support. I asked what support meant. She said loyalty. I asked what loyalty meant. She became irritated. That was the first time I saw the trap clearly. She wanted old-fashioned benefits without old-fashioned obligations. She wanted a provider, protector, planner, driver, handyman, emotional cushion, and emergency fund. But the second I asked for consistency, respect, exclusivity in behavior, or basic public loyalty, I was controlling. It was a traditional relationship only in the places where I was carrying weight. Every place where she might have to carry something became modern, fluid, nuanced, and resistant to labels. After that night, I started paying attention more deliberately, not obsessively, just clearly. I noticed she called me her man when she wanted something. She called herself an independent woman when I asked for consideration. She posted stories about not needing male validation while wearing the necklace I bought her. She told her friends I was a real provider, then laughed when Talia joked that men were finally useful again. She liked comments from guys under her photos and said I was insecure if I noticed. She went out for drinks with coworkers and said trust was mandatory. But if I did not answer a text within 20 minutes, she called it emotional neglect. One evening, she invited me to dinner with her friends. I paid for the whole table because Lena whispered that it would be embarrassing if I only covered us. The bill was almost $600. Talia raised her glass and toasted to men healing their provider wounds. Everyone laughed. I paid quietly. Then Talia asked Lena if she could ever be with a man who expected traditional girlfriend behavior. Lena smirked and said she was nobody's submissive little house pet. The table laughed again. I did not. I just took a sip of water and remembered the exact words, submissive little house pet. That was how she described the concept of giving back even a fraction of what she demanded from me. On the drive home, she noticed I was quiet. She asked if my ego was bruised. I said no. She said good because she needed a man secure enough to let her be fully herself. I asked if being fully herself included mocking me in public while I paid for her friend's dinner. She rolled her eyes. She said it was just a joke. Then she said if I wanted praise for paying, that defeated the purpose of generosity. I said I did not want praise. I wanted loyalty. She said there it was. There what was. The control, the possession, the fragile masculinity hiding under the provider costume. I let her finish. I did not defend myself. I had learned that defense only gave her more material. The next morning I made a decision. Not a dramatic one, no yelling and no ultimatum, no revenge. I simply decided to accept her logic exactly as she presented it. If relationships were not transactional, then my money was no longer part of the transaction. If she was independent, then I would treat her as independent. If loyalty was oppressive, then provision was optional. I started small. She sent me a link to a new restaurant and said we should go Friday. I said sure. Then I added that we could split it. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. She asked if I was serious. I said yes. She said she thought I enjoyed taking care of her. I said I did when it felt mutual. She said mutual did not always mean equal. I said that was true. Then I said Friday could be equal anyway. She canceled, claiming she was tired. The next week, she mentioned her rent was tight again. I said I was sorry to hear that. She waited. I waited too. The silence stretched. Then she asked if I was not going to offer. I said no. She asked why. I said because she was an independent woman and I did not want to insult her autonomy. She did not like that, not even a little. She said I was weaponizing her values against her. I said I was respecting them. She said I was being petty. I said I was being consistent. That word bothered her more than any insult could have. Consistency is dangerous to people who survive on exceptions. Over the next month, the provider lifestyle quietly ended. I stopped paying for her beauty appointments. I stopped covering her rides. I stopped sending random money when she complained about expenses. I stopped buying gifts after every argument to restore the peace. I still paid my own way. I still treated her politely. I still showed up when we made plans, but the open tap was closed. And the strangest thing happened. My life got calmer almost immediately. My savings account started moving in the right direction again. My weekends stopped feeling like unpaid shifts in someone else's fantasy. I bought new equipment for the crew. I fixed the squeak in my truck. I spent Sunday afternoon fishing with my brother for the first time in months. When Lena asked why I seemed distant, I said I was just focusing on my own responsibilities. She said she missed the old me. I knew what she meant. She missed the version of me who confused being useful with being loved. Her panic became more obvious when Talia got involved. Lena sent me a long message that had Talia's fingerprints all over it. It said my withdrawal of provision was financial manipulation. It said I was punishing her for having standards. It said real masculine leadership did not keep score. It said she refused to lower her expectations just because I was uncomfortable with feminine receiving. I read the message twice, then I replied with one sentence. I am comfortable with feminine receiving when it comes with feminine loyalty. She called me within 30 seconds. Her voice was already sharp. She asked what the hell that meant. I said it meant if she wanted a traditional provider, she could not react with fury when I asked for traditional respect. She said respect was earned. I said provision was earned too. That stopped her for a moment. Then the anger came. She said I was revealing my true colors. She said I wanted to buy obedience. She said men like me were dangerous because we pretended to be generous while secretly keeping women in debt. I let her talk. The old me would have tried to explain the difference between appreciation and obedience. The old me would have apologized for not wording it perfectly. The old me would have offered dinner to calm her down. I was not the old me anymore. I asked if she wanted to meet Saturday and talk in person. She said yes. Then she added that I should choose somewhere nice because this was an important conversation. I said we could meet at the coffee shop near the park. She hung up. Saturday came cold and bright. I got there 10 minutes early and ordered black coffee. Lena arrived in a fitted gray coat, sunglasses on her head, expression tight. She did not kiss me. She sat down and asked if I was ready to apologize. I said no. She stared at me. I pulled a small folded paper from my jacket pocket. Not a spreadsheet, not a dossier, just a handwritten list. Dates, amounts, and the reason she had given at the time. Dinner for her friends, rent help, gym membership, dry cleaning, weekend hotel, flowers after arguments, Ubers, emergency salon appointment before a work event. I slid it across the table. She looked at it like it was something dirty. I said I was not asking for repayment. I said I was showing the pattern. She accused me of keeping financial surveillance on her. I said receipts are not surveillance when they come from your own bank account. Her mouth tightened. I continued calmly. I told her that for months she had described my role with very traditional language: provider, protector, leader, masculine presence, safe container. I told her I accepted that she valued those things. Then I told her the part she did not want to hear. Traditional structures are not buffets. You do not get to take provision, protection, planning, sacrifice, and public status, then reject loyalty, respect, gratitude, and sexual exclusivity in behavior as oppressive. Her face flushed. She said I had no right to bring sex into it. I said I was not talking about sex, I was talking about loyalty. I mentioned the coworker drink she hid until after they happened. I mentioned the flirty comments she entertained online. I mentioned the way she mocked me in front of Talia after asking me to cover the table. I mentioned how every boundary I expressed was labeled insecurity, while every expectation she expressed was called a standard. She said those things were not comparable. I asked why. She had no answer besides anger. That was the whole relationship in miniature. Her needs were principles. My needs were problems. Then she tried the soft voice, the one she used when she wanted the argument to turn into me comforting her. She said she thought I loved taking care of her. I said I did. She said then, why was I changing? I said because taking care of someone who respects you feels like love. Taking care of someone who despises needing you feels like labor. Her eyes glistened. For a second, I thought she understood. Then she said if I truly loved her, I would not make provision conditional. There it was, the final circle. My giving had to be unconditional. Her loyalty had to remain negotiable. I leaned back and felt an unexpected calm settle over me. Not victory, not cruelty, just the quiet feeling of a door closing properly. I said I agreed that love should not feel like a hostage exchange, so I was ending the exchange. She asked what that meant. I said it meant we were done. She blinked. Then she laughed once, short and sharp. She said I would not find another woman like her. I said that was the idea. The anger vanished from her face so quickly it almost looked painful. Underneath it was fear, not fear of me, fear of losing the arrangement. She started talking faster. She said we could reset. She said maybe she had let Talia influence her too much. She said maybe she could be more mindful about appreciation. She said she never meant to make me feel used. All of those words might have mattered 3 months earlier. They did not matter now, because I had already seen what happened when she thought there were no consequences. That is the only time you truly know someone's values. Not when they are trying to win you back, when they believe you are already secured. I stood up and put cash on the table for my coffee. She looked up at me like she expected me to sit back down. I did not. She said I was abandoning her. I said no. I said I was resigning from a job I never applied for. Her eyes filled completely then. She whispered my name, Marcus. It was the first time in months my name had sounded like a person instead of a resource. I felt a little sadness, not enough to change my mind. I told her I hoped she found the lifestyle she wanted. Then I added that she should be honest about the terms next time. If she wanted a provider, she should be ready to be loyal to him in the same traditional language she used to invoice him. If she wanted complete independence, she should fund it completely. Both were valid. The lie was demanding one while performing the other. She did not respond. She just sat there with the paper in front of her, staring at the list like the numbers had betrayed her. But the numbers had not betrayed her. They had only removed the fog. I walked out of the coffee shop into the cold air. My truck was parked across the street. There was a ladder strapped to the rack, a cracked mug in the cup holder, and a half-finished estimate sitting on the passenger seat. Nothing about it looked impressive, but it was mine, paid for by my work, maintained by my hands, quiet in the way real freedom is quiet. Lena texted me that night, then the next morning, then through the week. The messages moved through every phase: anger, accusation, sadness, nostalgia, a photo of us from the first month, a long paragraph about masculine wounds, a shorter paragraph saying Talia had never liked me anyway. Then finally a simple question: were you really that unhappy? I stared at that one for a while. Then I answered honestly, I was not unhappy because I provided. I was unhappy because you treated provision like proof that I owed you everything, while treating loyalty like a favor you might grant if I behaved correctly. She never replied. A month later, a mutual friend told me Lena was posting about decentering men and entering her self-funded era. I hoped that was true. Self-funded independence would probably teach her more than another provider ever could. As for me, life returned to its natural size: work, family, gym twice a week, fishing when the weather allowed it, dinner with people who said thank you without being prompted. I did not become bitter. Bitterness is just another way of staying attached. I simply became harder to confuse. Now when someone says they want traditional treatment, I listen for what they are offering back. Not because love is a ledger, because love without reciprocity becomes servitude with candles on the table. And if someone demands a throne while calling your boundaries oppression, let her keep the crown. Just make sure she pays for the castle herself.